Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today we are reviewing a BanG Dream cosplay from CGCos on Taobao. So for Katsucon 2020, I'm going to be cosplaying the Romeo and Cinderella outfit of Ushigome Rimi from BanG Dream Girls Band Party. And this outfit was the collaboration with Hatsune Miku in, I want to say, 2018. Overall though, I think this outfit is super cute and I'm really excited. I didn't want to make it myself because I'm already making multiple large cosplays for Katsucon, so I decided to try to purchase it. My go-to place to purchase cosplay is CGCos on AliExpress specifically. However, they did not have the Romeo and Cinderella Rimi on AliExpress. They only had Arisa's outfit. I did message them to see if they could maybe upload it because they had it on their Taobao shop but not on AliExpress. So I know that they make the cosplay, they just didn't have it listed on AliExpress. But they read my message and then did not respond. So in the end, I decided to order it from Taobao directly, which is something I've not done in a very, very long time. I think the last time I ordered directly from Taobao was maybe 2010. It has been an extremely long time, maybe 2011, but it's been a long time. So I had to sort of relearn how to use Taobao and what shopping service to use. So in the end, I went with Yoibai because it is a shopping service I know a few of my friends who shop on Taobao a lot use, and I've heard, you know, pretty good things about their service, so I decided to use them. That being said, let's get into the actual review. I did open this already. I tried it on, but that is it. I have not actually like properly worn it. So let's start with the main pieces of this cosplay, and then we will get into the accessories. So first, the biggest item is the top. Here is sort of the halter neck area. It's got this organza piece, and then it comes down to satin with more organza. And then it also has a sort of peplum type skirt attached to it. The first thing I noticed is that the organza they used on this cosplay overall is supremely cheap. I am not a huge fan of the organza that they used, but it's not the worst I've ever felt either. I also think that this triangle of organza is very weirdly placed. When I try this on in a little bit, you'll see on my body it's not really the right shape. Also, as with most pre-bought cosplays, I feel like most of this is satin, which I have some feelings on. This hot pink is just hot pink with black polka dots printed on it. When I look at the photos for this cosplay, when I look at the reference images, I think of this as being flocked velvet. So it's a little bit different than what I imagined, but I'm not really surprised that they didn't go with flocked velvet because that's a whole other process. But yes, this is just plain satin. This top does actually have padding in it, which I wasn't expecting, but I'm very grateful for. It doesn't, however, have any boning, which I also pretty much knew it wouldn't. Even though, you know, you can sort of tell that this middle part is meant to be almost like a corset or a bustier, so that's something to note. Also, this is actual grommets and actual ribbon lacing, which I assumed that they would skimp on. I didn't expect this to be real ribbon and real grommet specifically, but they did put it there and it's nice. I will also say all of the lace on this cosplay is fairly nice. It's still not super high quality lace, but it's not Rasta lace, which I personally hate. I think anyone who has ever worn Lolita fashion will quickly become a lace snob and realize that a lot of lace that is used in sort of fast fashion garments, or even just, you know, cosplay, pre-made outfits, anything, is really poor quality. So they do actually have some decent Venice lace on this cosplay, which I'm very grateful for because otherwise I would have to replace all of it before I wear it. So moving right along, the skirt is also satin. All of the ruffles are satin. Everything on this top is satin except for the organza and this gold, which is sort of like a gold lame. I will say there are lots of loose threads. It's not like the end of the world, but you can see there's some loose threads here. They come off easily enough, but if you bought this, you would kind of have to go through and just pull out any loose threads before wearing it, or I would recommend doing that, especially if you're going to be taking pictures in it. And then there is an invisible zipper down the back, which functions fine. It doesn't go all the way to the bottom because it's an invisible zipper, not a separating zipper. It goes down to right here, so almost to the bottom, but not quite. I think that that is fine. Not all of the seams line up, which again is really not a surprise to me. You can see here the seams on the organza don't match up. They have a bit of a gap in between them, and similarly the hot pink ruffle underneath also does not match up. But those are pretty minor details to me. I'm not really bothered by that. One other thing to note is that this sort of collar is made, the white on it is made of a grosgrain ribbon, and it attaches with Velcro. Every cosplay so far that I've bought from CGCos has Velcro on it somewhere, and as somebody who really doesn't use Velcro at all in costumes, it is weird to me. It's not like a deal breaker, but it is different. It's a bit uncomfortable, and usually I have replaced the Velcro with snaps or hooks and eyes, but I don't think that I need to with this, because normally the things that I've replaced the Velcro on have been things that were also too big, so just in the process of taking them in, I would change the closure, but with this, the neck fits fine, so it would not really make sense for me to remove the Velcro and change it, although I could. And there are changes I am going to make to this cosplay, but I will talk about those a little bit more after. So the other main garment is this pair of bloomers. They are black satin, and they have a sort of faux lace burned edge hem. These are fine. The satin is fine. It's obviously cheap. My one complaint is that it seems almost like, even though the top of this is correctly sized, it seems to me like they didn't size up the bloomers. And I say that because they do fit on my body, but they aren't bloomers anymore when they're on my body. They don't have any volume. They are just shorts. So I might end up actually remaking these and making myself a new pair of black satin bloomers, and instead of having this sort of burned edge, which I think it looks accurate to the picture, but just instead of doing that, I might try to do a thick black lace like is on the top. But yes, these are fine, but they really aren't bloomers anymore when they're on my body. I do want to note, I bought an XXL for this cosplay, and normally I am a XXXL in CGCos, or that's what I have bought normally is a XXXL. But every time I buy something XXXL, it's been way too big. And so the XXL, I was sort of on the cusp of not fitting based on the measurements, and I was a little bit worried that it would be too small, but it actually fits me. The top itself fits me pretty much perfectly. It's not really loose in any places, which is a surprise, and it's not particularly tight anywhere either. It's just the bloomers that are, they're not even too small in the sense of like they're uncomfortable, because they feel fine. It's just that they're stretched out all the way, so then they are just shorts. I do have a fairly bodacious booty, to put it bluntly, so that's probably part of the issue, but I do feel the need to note that yeah, they aren't really bloomers anymore, they're shorts. But replacing the bloomers is the easiest thing that I could do. Bloomers are super easy to make, so I don't really have a problem with the fact that those don't fit super well. Moving on, the last sort of big piece is this bow. Note, I didn't iron it. Obviously, this is just basically right out of the box. So it is this big organza bow with big bow tails and a big satin train. So I have some issues with this. First of all, just again, the organza being super cheap is really noticeable when you have this much of it. I don't think this is gonna hold its shape at all, even when I iron it, so I might have to do something to make this hold its shape. As with most things that I've bought from CGCos, it doesn't have an actual sewn on hook or, you know, clip for you to use. They just give you a big safety pin that you can then attach yourself, which I think is fine, but I will probably add either large snaps or something to this, because my butt bow for the only other costume I have from them that came with a butt bow, which is my Eve's first outfit, also from BanG, the bow fell off midway through the day and like the safety pin broke, so I'm gonna try to probably replace it. I think I probably like sat on the bow tails and it pulled and broke the safety pin, but my only other complaint with this is that the satin is sewn with the wrong side out. And I don't know if that's on purpose or not. So what I mean by that is, this is the back of the bow, because this is where the train is sewn on. This is the right side of the satin. You can tell it's very, very shiny. That's the other thing. All the satin is pretty cheap. That's just how pre-made cosplays go in my experience, from what I have bought and from what I have seen other people wearing. Pre-made cosplays, the satin is not amazing. It's not the cheapest satin either though. It's not like a super thin costume satin. It is sort of like a cheap Duchess satin where it is soft and it's got that sort of gentle sheen, but it's still cheap. Regardless, I don't know if that's on purpose or not, because in my opinion, that looks pretty bad. But if you flip it the way that it is actually sewn, and this is on the outside, this looks fine, because it's not super shiny. So I assume that that was probably done on purpose, but it was just weird to open it and see. Overall, this bow is fine. The shape of the bow itself is fine if you stretch it out, but again, I really don't think it's gonna hold that shape. I think that the bow tie in the middle is a little bit too wide. I think if it was slightly smaller, it might look a little bit better, but that is really just me nitpicking, to be honest. So with that, let's move on to the other accessories. There are quite a few of them. So let's start with this armband. This is how it arrived to me. It is very simple. It's just black ruffles. It's got a thin black elastic on the inside of it, and it's got this hot pink ribbon sort of poorly sewn to it, and then you can tie it into a bow yourself, which seems kind of weird to me. I wish that they had just sewn a bow onto it. It fits fine. It feels like it will stay more or less where I put it. It's not stretched too tight on me, which is good because my arms are, you know, fairly dense. So yeah, this piece is fine. It's also got some loose thread. Nothing wrong with it. Moving on to the next accessories that I don't really have any problems with are the gloves. So these are fine. They're gloves. They fit a little bit weird, but I personally have fairly short fingers, so these are a little bit too long, but they're not too long in the way that, like, I need to fix them. I think they're fine. But yeah, these are fine. They're gloves. They're sewn fairly nicely. They fit fairly nicely. Nothing to say on them. They are gloves. And so now let's get into the accessories that I have some problems with. We're gonna start with the one that I have the least amount of problems with, which is the hair bow. So this hair bow is a black organza bow with lace trim, and it has a large pink flower in the middle with ribbon tails on the ends. Where to start with this? I think upon looking at it, the first thought is like, it's cute, and it is, but there are some problems with it. I think the lace that they used is nice. I think the shape of the bow is fine. Also, it has an alligator clip, which is great. I prefer this type of clip over a barrette clip, but that's just my own personal preference. The most minor of problems that I have with this is just that they chose to use sort of a light yellow ribbon for the tails instead of gold. I really wish that they had used the same gold as is on, these are the socks, this is a sock garter, and also the top of the bodice, sort of in that corset area. Those both use the same gold, and then this uses this like thin yellow ribbon. I think it would look better if it all matched, so that's one fairly minor problem I have with it. The other problem is just this big yellow pom-pom. I recognize that they probably thought it was cute, but I think it just looks really cheap, so I'm gonna take this pom-pom off and add some yellow rhinestones or like a large yellow pearl bead, but just something that is not this. And speaking of rhinestones, my other small complaint is that this is the only part of the cosplay that has rhinestones, and you can clearly see all the glue spots where they just didn't remove the glue. They were not careful with the glue. So it looks pretty messy when you're up close. Obviously, if you're not that close to it, you can't really tell. I think it's fine. But it's just, you know, not my favorite. And also, the flower has a white circle of felt backing it, and then it is just glued onto the bow. It's not sewn on at all. So there is a fair chance that this will just pop right off during the course of a day, or if you're wearing this multiple times, which I hope to. So I'm probably gonna add some sort of support stitches there. And then also there's just it's clear that this flower, this chiffon flower, had leaves on it at some point, and they tried to cut the leaves off, but they didn't really properly cut them off, so they have just sort of strings of sort of torn organza or chiffon, and yeah, it's fine, but it's really not very high quality. And the last accessory, which is the one that I have the most problems with, is the socks. And so this is one of the socks. I will say I had another pair of socks from CGCos, and actually 2 more pairs, and they all had the same problem. So first of all, the socks are just a tube. There is not like an ankle part. They are just a tube with a rounded edge, which I think is fine, but they're never gonna fit your legs quite right. They're kind of always gonna be a little bit baggy around the ankle, because for most people your ankles sort of curve inwards. Like you have your calf and your ankle, and then your foot kind of curves back out a little bit. Yeah, they're never gonna fit quite right, but they're okay in terms of shape. The tops have this gold sort of filigree shape and gold trim, and then they have these vinyl gold dots on them, which I think are fine overall. They are a little bit loose. They feel like they might pop off, which is a bit of a concern, but not a huge deal. As I said before, this gold is the same as the gold on the top, which I appreciate. And then it has garters with it, which are supposed to garter to your bloomers. Problem number 1 is that these garters are not adjustable. They are one length, which means they aren't gonna fit correctly for most people. They're gonna be either too long or too short, depending on how you are wearing them. For me, they're too long and they sort of bubble out away from my leg. So I am personally going to add a slider to this, so that way I can adjust the size as I'm putting them on and after they're on. The garter clips is another problem I have. I think they are mostly fine, except that one of them snapped off and broke, and this is the sort of hook where it was, and then the garter piece itself is in 3 pieces that I just now have. And I have tried to fix it, but it popped off again immediately, so I'm gonna have to figure out what to do with that, and that's pretty unfortunate. But I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. It is just something that sort of needs to be dealt with. The other complaint I have, and I don't know how you would even fix this, so this is sort of just complaining into the void. These shapes are fine, but they don't stick to your leg, so they just sort of hang off of you a little bit awkwardly, and I think I'm probably going to use like sock glue or another sort of body fixative to stick these to my legs, because I think it looks a little bit silly. And my final complaint about these is that they are gray. They are a big solid gray, which when you look at the reference images, yes, Rimi's legs are gray technically, but I personally think that it is meant to be sheer black, and that's why they look gray as opposed to solid gray spandex. But this does make it more durable, because obviously any sort of sheer fabric or sheer leggings, tights, socks is going to risk getting runs in it. So I get why they chose the solid gray spandex, but it's just sort of aesthetically not what I imagined it being. So overall, I think this is an okay costume. I'm gonna now try it on so you can sort of see the fit issues. I have not styled my wig yet, so I'm just gonna clip the hair clip into my natural hair as opposed to putting it on a wig, but you can still get an idea for how it looks. So I'll be right back. So here is what the cosplay looks like worn. I'm only wearing one of the socks because, like I said, the other one is broken, so there's no point in wearing it. But you can see what I mean in terms of the fit. It fits very well in terms of the top. Everything feels sort of correct. It is correctly my shape. But this shouldn't start right in the center of my chest. It should start over more towards the armpit, so this should be more of a wide triangle. It's not something I feel like fixing, to be honest. I don't think it's a huge deal, but it is something I noticed for sure. And yeah, the bloomers are just shorts. They really don't have any volume to them anymore. Again, partially just because I have quite big thighs and quite a big bum. Yeah, the safety pin holding this is not attached very well at the moment. because I put it on myself. So I am planning on adding rhinestones to quite a lot of this cosplay, specifically along this hot pink line here. I'm also going to be adding boning channels to the bodice because while it fits quite well, I would like it to have a bit more structure, especially because the back continues to sag a bit. And if I had boning channels, it would stay upright better. The other thing to note, as I said before, is the socks. This really doesn't look right. And this is just kind of what happens when you don't have adjustable garters, because as you can see, the back of this is more or less taut. It looks correct, but the front loops a lot because it doesn't have a slider to adjust it. And you can see what I mean about this part sticking out. It's not holding to my leg, it's just kind of flopping around. So I'll probably use some either garment tape or sock glue or something to keep this flat against my leg. So yes, overall that is the cosplay. I think it looks pretty good, but there are changes I'm going to be making to it before CGCon comes around. So if you would like to see a video on how I customize pre-made cosplays, please let me know, because that's something I really enjoy doing, and I think it would be informative for people who don't have the sewing skills or don't have, you know, the time or desire to make their own cosplays but want to sort of get a little bit more oomph, a little bit more flair into their pre-made cosplays. So if that's something that you're interested in, please let me know and I will happily make a video on that for you. But until then, I hope everyone is doing well. I hope if you have any conventions coming up that you're not too stressed, you're not crunching too hard. And as for me, I will see you in the next video. Bye!